The Harbor Club was exactly the kind of restaurant my sister Isabella would choose for her engagement party. Elegant, expensive, and designed to impress. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over tables draped in crisp white linens, and the view of the city skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows was nothing short of spectacular. I sat at the far end of the long table, nursing a glass of wine and trying to blend into the background. 22 family members and close friends had gathered to celebrate Isabella's engagement to Trevor, our investment banker she'd been dating for 8 months. The conversation flowed around me like I wasn't even there. "Trevor's taking me to the Maldives for our honeymoon," Isabella gushed to our cousin Sarah. 3 weeks at that resort where celebrities stay. It costs more per night than most people make in a month. "How exciting," Sarah responded. "And the wedding venue you chose is absolutely perfect. The Grandview estate is so exclusive." "Only the best," Isabella said with a satisfied smile. "We're inviting 300 guests and the reception alone is costing us $150,000. But Trevor says we only get married once, so we might as well do it right." I took another sip of wine and tried to ignore the familiar sting of being overlooked. Isabella had always been the golden child, beautiful, successful, and somehow effortlessly good at getting everyone's attention. As kids, she was the one who got the lead in school plays while I worked backstage with the lighting crew. In high school, she was prom queen while I was in the computer lab building websites for local businesses. Now, at 26, she was a successful real estate agent driving a BMW and living in a downtown condo. I was 29, drove a modest sedan, and lived in a small apartment across town. At least that's what my family believed. "Maya," my mother's voice cut through my thoughts. "You've been awfully quiet tonight." All eyes turned to me and I felt my cheeks warm. Just enjoying listening to everyone's stories. "Speaking of stories," Isabella said, her voice taking on that particular edge I knew so well, "I have an announcement to make." She stood up, wine glass in hand, and waited for the table to quiet down. "First, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. Trevor and I are so grateful to be surrounded by the people we love most." There was a murmur of appreciation around the table. "But I also want to address something that's been weighing on my heart," Isabella continued, her voice growing more serious. "Family loyalty is incredibly important to me, and I believe that the people in our lives should either support us or step aside." I felt a chill run down my spine. Where was this going? Unfortunately, not everyone at this table has been supportive of my relationship with Trevor or my success in general. Some people seem more interested in bringing others down than lifting them up. She looked directly at me. "Maya, I've tried to be patient with your attitude, but I can't ignore it anymore. The snide comments, the lack of enthusiasm for my achievements, the way you always seem to find fault with my choices." My mouth fell open. "Isabella, what are you talking about?" "Don't play innocent," she said coldly. "You've been jealous of me our entire lives and it's gotten worse since I got engaged. You can barely manage to congratulate me, and when you do, it feels forced and fake." The entire table was staring at us now. I felt my face burning with embarrassment and confusion. "I never said anything negative about your engagement," I protested. "It's not what you say, it's what you don't say. It's your attitude, your energy. You bring negativity wherever you go." "Isabella, that's not fair," our Aunt Linda said gently. "No, Aunt Linda, I need to say this." Isabella's voice was getting louder. "I've worked hard for everything I have. My career, my relationship, my success. And I won't have someone in my life who can't be happy for me." She looked around the table, then back at me. "So I'm making this official. Maya, you're not family anymore. You're not welcome at my wedding, and after tonight, I don't want you in my life." The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear my own heartbeat, could feel every eye in the restaurant staring at our table. "Isabella," my father said quietly, "don't you think you're being a bit harsh?" "No, Dad. I'm being honest. Maya has never supported me, never celebrated my success, never been the sister I needed. So as far as I'm concerned, she's not my sister anymore." I sat there in stunned silence, trying to process what had just happened. My own sister had just disowned me in front of our entire family, accusing me of jealousy and negativity I wasn't even aware I'd been displaying. "I think maybe you've had too much wine," I said quietly. "Don't patronize me," Isabella snapped. "This has nothing to do with wine and everything to do with the truth. You're jealous because your life isn't working out the way you wanted, and you take it out on me." My life is working out fine, I said, though my voice sounded weak even to my own ears. Really? You're 29, single, living in that tiny apartment, driving that embarrassing car. You work at some computer job that none of us understand, making what, 40,000 a year? And you wonder why I don't want your negativity in my life. The cruelty of her words hit me like a physical blow. Around the table I could see family members looking uncomfortable, but no one spoke up to defend me. Isabella, please, my mother said. Maya is your sister. Not anymore, she's not. That's when the waiter appeared at Isabella's shoulder, holding a leather folder. Excuse me, he said politely, but I have your check. The total comes to $3,847. Isabella turned to Trevor with a confident smile. Honey, would you take care of this? Trevor pulled out his wallet and handed over a black credit card. The waiter disappeared for a few minutes, then returned with an apologetic expression. I'm sorry, sir, but this card was declined. Trevor's face went red. That's impossible. Try it again. The waiter nodded and disappeared once more. When he returned, his expression was even more apologetic. I'm sorry, but it was declined again. Do you have another card? Trevor fumbled through his wallet and produced another card. Try this one. Same result. Maybe there's something wrong with your machine, Isabella said, her voice tight with embarrassment. I don't think so, ma'am. We've processed several other payments tonight without any issues. Trevor tried a third card. Declined. Dad, could you help us out? Isabella asked, turning to our father with a strained smile. Dad handed over his card. Declined. What is happening? Isabella's voice was rising with panic. Let me try, our Aunt Linda offered. Her card was declined too. One by one, every adult at the table tried to pay the bill. Every single card was declined. The waiter stood there patiently, but I could see other restaurant staff starting to watch our table with concern. There must be a problem with your credit card system, Trevor said, his voice defensive. Sir, as I mentioned, we've processed other payments tonight without any issues. Perhaps you could call your bank. The humiliation on Isabella's face was painful to watch, even after what she'd just put me through. Her perfect engagement party was turning into a nightmare, and everyone at the table was witnessing her fiancé's financial embarrassment. That's when I quietly reached into my purse and pulled out my wallet. Excuse me, I said to the waiter, holding out a black card. Try this. The waiter took my card and looked at it closely. His entire demeanor changed. Ms. Morgan, he said, his voice suddenly filled with respect. I'll process this right away. And please let me get the owner. He'll want to thank you personally for dining with us tonight. The table went silent again, but this time it was a different kind of silence. Everyone was staring at my card. Not just any black card, but the kind of black card that had no spending limit and required a net worth well into the millions to obtain. The waiter returned within minutes, this time accompanied by a distinguished man in an expensive suit. Ms. Morgan, the owner said, extending his hand to me, what an honor to have you dining with us tonight. I'm James Whitmore, the owner of the Harbor Club. He turned to address the entire table. I hope you all realize what a privilege it is to dine with Ms. Morgan. She's one of our most valued guests and one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the city. I felt my cheeks burning as everyone stared at me. In fact, Mr. Whitmore continued, Ms. Morgan's company, Digital Dynamics, just acquired 3 of the city's largest tech firms. The business community has been buzzing about it for weeks. Isabella's face had gone completely white. And of course, Mr. Whitmore added with a warm smile, as one of our platinum members, tonight's dinner is complimentary. Thank you for choosing the Harbor Club for your celebration. He shook my hand once more and left us sitting in stunned silence. The waiter placed my card back on the table in front of me, along with a receipt showing a 0 balance. Thank you, Ms. Morgan. Your usual table will be ready anytime you'd like to return. After he left, you could have heard a pin drop. Finally, Trevor cleared his throat. Maya, I had no idea you were. We didn't know about your business success. Nobody asked, I said quietly, tucking my card back into my wallet. Digital Dynamics, my father said slowly. That's your company? One of them, yes. One of them. Isabella's voice came out as a whisper. I have several business interests. Digital Dynamics is my main company, but I also have investments in real estate, renewable energy, and a few tech startups that have done well. Sarah leaned forward. Maya, when you say, done well, last year's revenue across all my companies was about $340 million. The number hung in the air like smoke. $340 million? My mother repeated faintly. That's revenue, not profit. Profit was closer to $89 million. Isabella looked like she might faint. But you live in that small apartment, she said weakly. I own the building. I live in the penthouse, but I use the smaller unit as my home office when I need to focus without distractions. Your car is practical and reliable. I have other cars, but I don't see the point in flashy displays of wealth. Trevor was staring at me like I was a completely different person. Maya, the tech community has been talking about the Digital Dynamics acquisitions for months. You're a major player in the industry. I try to keep a low profile. But why didn't you tell us? My mother asked. I looked around the table at my family's faces, shocked, confused, and more than a little embarrassed. When would I have told you? Isabella just spent 10 minutes explaining why I don't belong in this family because I'm unsuccessful and jealous. You all seem to have very fixed ideas about who I am and what my life looks like. We had no idea, my father said quietly. That's because you never asked. You saw the modest apartment and the practical car and assumed you knew everything about my situation. Isabella finally found her voice. Maya, I'm so sorry. I had no idea about your business success. I feel terrible about what I said. You feel terrible because you found out I have money or because you realize you hurt your sister? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Because if you only feel bad now that you know I'm wealthy, then you've just proven everything you accused me of. You've shown that your love is conditional on success and status. That's not true, she protested. Isn't it? 5 minutes ago I wasn't family anymore because you thought I was unsuccessful. Now you're apologizing because you found out I'm richer than your fiancé. The truth of that statement settled over the table like a heavy blanket. Maya, Trevor said carefully, I think we all owe you an apology. We made assumptions about your life that were clearly wrong. The assumptions aren't the problem, I said. The problem is that you were willing to cut me out of the family based on those assumptions. I looked directly at Isabella. You didn't disown me because I was actually unsupportive or negative. You disowned me because you thought I was unsuccessful, and unsuccessful people aren't worth having in your life. That's not. Isabella started then stopped. Isabella, in the 8 months you've been with Trevor, how many times have you asked about my work? She couldn't answer. How many times have you invited me to lunch, just the two of us? Silence. How many times have you called me just to talk, not because you needed something? Her eyes filled with tears. You decided I was jealous and unsupportive, but the truth is, you've been so wrapped up in your own success that you never bothered to learn anything about my life. I'm a terrible sister, she whispered. You're not terrible. But you've been selfish and shallow, and you've prioritized appearances over relationships. I stood up from the table. The irony is, I was actually happy for you. Your engagement, your career success, your beautiful life. I genuinely celebrated all of it. But you were so convinced that I was jealous, you couldn't see my actual support. Where are you going? My mother asked. Home. I have an early morning meeting with some investors from Japan. Maya, please don't leave like this, Isabella said, standing up as well. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know you are. But you're sorry because you're embarrassed, not because you understand what you did wrong. Then help me understand. I paused, considering whether this was worth the effort. Isabella, you spent years building an image of me as the unsuccessful sister. It made you feel better about yourself to have someone to look down on. When I didn't fit neatly into that role, instead of questioning your assumptions, you decided I was the problem. You're right, she said quietly. The sad part is I would have loved to share my success with you. I would have loved to have a sister who celebrated my achievements the way I celebrated yours. But you were so invested in seeing me as a failure that you never gave me the chance. I picked up my purse. Maya, what can I do to fix this? Isabella asked desperately. I don't know if you can fix it. But if you want to try, start by figuring out whether you want a relationship with your successful sister, or whether you just want to avoid the embarrassment of having misjudged me so badly. I headed toward the exit, then turned back. Oh, and Isabella, the reason all those credit cards were declined tonight. There's been a data breach at the major credit processing companies. It's been all over the business news. My company's cybersecurity division has been working around the clock to help fix it. The table stared at me in stunned silence. I would have mentioned it earlier, but nobody asked about my work. 3 days later, Isabella showed up at my real apartment, the penthouse she'd never seen. "How did you get my address?" I asked through the intercom. "I hired a private investigator," she said. "Please, Maya. I need to talk to you." I buzzed her up, curious despite myself. When the elevator doors opened, Isabella stepped into my foyer and stopped dead. "Oh my God," she breathed. The penthouse was beautiful, floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, and a view of the entire city. But it wasn't ostentatious. It was elegant and comfortable, designed for someone who appreciated quality without needing to show off. "This is where you live?" she asked. "This is where I live." She walked to the windows and stared out at the view. "Maya, this must be worth about $3.2 million. I bought it 3 years ago. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you never asked where I lived. You saw me leaving from the smaller apartment and assumed that's where I lived." Isabella turned away from the window to face me. "I've been thinking about what you said at the restaurant. About whether I want a relationship with my successful sister or just want to avoid embarrassment. And I want a relationship with my sister. The real you, not the version I created in my head." She sat down on my couch. "I talked to Mom and Dad. We've all been thinking about how we treated you and we're ashamed." "Isabella." "No, let me finish. You were right about everything. I was so busy building my own success that I never bothered to learn about yours. And worse than that, I think I unconsciously needed you to be unsuccessful so I could feel better about myself." I sat down across from her. "I've been asking myself why I was so quick to believe you were jealous," she continued. "And I realized it's because I was jealous of you." "Jealous of me? Why?" "Because you've always been genuinely happy for other people's success. Even mine. You never needed to put others down to feel good about yourself. That's a quality I've never had, and I think I resented you for it." I felt my anger starting to soften. "Also," Isabella said with a small smile, "I called Trevor off the engagement." "What? Why?" "Because when I told him I wanted to apologize to you and rebuild our relationship, he said I was overreacting. He said you were probably just lucky with some tech investments and I shouldn't feel bad about putting you in your place." I winced. Yeah. Turns out my fiancé is exactly the kind of shallow, status-obsessed person I was becoming. I realized that if I stayed with him, I'd never become the person I want to be. "Isabella, you don't have to change your whole life because of this." "Yes, I do. Maya, you've built an empire while staying humble and kind. You've been successful without losing your soul. I want to learn how to do that." She leaned forward. "Will you teach me? Will you let me be your sister again, for real this time?" I looked at Isabella, really looked at her, and saw something I hadn't seen in years. Vulnerability. Genuine remorse. And maybe, just maybe, the sister I'd always wanted. "Hey," I said. "But we start over. No assumptions, no judgments. We get to know each other as adults. Deal? And you have to promise me something. Anything. Next time you're planning a big celebration, ask me about my work first. Because I might have some ideas about venues." Isabella looked confused. "What do you mean?" I smiled. "I own the Harbor Club, Isabella. I bought it last year when Mr. Whitmore was looking to expand to other cities." Her jaw dropped. "You own the restaurant where my engagement party was?" "I own 17 restaurants across the city. The Harbor Club is just my favorite." Isabella started laughing. Really laughing for the first time since I'd known her as an adult. "Maya, my sister, the secret restaurant mogul. What else don't I know about you?" "Well," I said, settling back into my chair, "let me tell you about my renewable energy investments." For the next 4 hours we talked. Really talked. Isabella asked questions about my businesses, my goals, my challenges. I told her about the satisfaction of building something meaningful, the pressure of managing hundreds of employees, the excitement of seeing innovative ideas come to life. In return, she told me about the pressure she'd felt to constantly achieve, the fear that had driven her to put others down, and the loneliness of building a life focused more on image than substance. When she finally left that night, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope that we could actually be sisters. 6 months later, Isabella joined my company as head of business development. She took a significant pay cut from her real estate job, but she said it was worth it to work on something meaningful. Plus, she told me on her first day, I finally get to brag about my sister's success instead of pretending it doesn't exist. And that night, for the first time in years, she called just to talk. No agenda. No favors to ask. Just two sisters finally getting to know each other. It was the best conversation we'd ever had.